Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahushai, Ba'ashim Rakakwadash, Barakathom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule and teach well. And peace and salutations to Ya'akim out there pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the Brother Raya with another video. And we're not even 4 months into 2019, and the year's already started off with a bang. And I'll be reading from an article on NBCnews.com titled, How to See the Superworm Equinox Moon, the last supermoon of 2019. The sky-watching event coincides with the spring equinox, which heralds the start of a new season, but more importantly, heralds the coming destruction of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai upon this earth, especially the United States of America, which is biblically known as Babylon the Great and spiritual Egypt, as well as spiritual Sodom and Gomorrah, because the Most High put signs in the heavens to warn the people of the coming times. Get ready, sky watchers. The last supermoon of 2019 will be visible in the night sky Wednesday, coinciding with the spring equinox that heralds the start of a new season, the March 20th spectacle. So it took place last week, the night after the Passover, which is very spiritual because, as you know, after the Israelites celebrated the first Passover, they fled Egypt, which was being smitten by the plagues of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai. And Yahweh willing, this is the last Passover in America. But as you can see, things aren't going too good in the good old US of A. Calamities are befalling it daily. You've got Edomites addicted to opioids dying by the hundreds daily. You've got civil unrest brewing, which will lead to a civil war. You've got racial tensions building up, which will lead to a race war. You've got the upcoming martial law. You've got the impending collapse of the U.S. economy, and the list goes on and on. The March 20th spectacle will be the final of this year's 3 back-to-back-to-back supermoons. The first was on January 21st, and the second, the biggest and brightest supermoon of 2019, was on February 19th. So it's no insignificant thing that 3 supermoons have happened back-to-back-to-back in the first 3 months of 2019. And I'm going to jump down to the last paragraph of this article. March's full moon is sometimes called the worm moon because according to folklore tradition, it occurs at a time when the frosty ground is melting and earthworms start to emerge. And there was a worm moon around the Passover last year, and I did a video on it relating to how the word worm reminded me of wormwood or bitterness, which this captivity in the United States of America definitely is. But what I found more interesting is with this moon being called a worm moon because according to folklore tradition, it occurs at a time when the frosty ground is melting and earthworms start to emerge. You had that bomb cyclone, which caused a lot of snow to build up in the central United States. And not just that, but there's been historic levels of flooding taking place in the same area. And as that snow starts to melt, it's only going to exacerbate that problem. As we'll read in this article on the Economic Collapse blog.com titled, Government Warns of Historic Widespread Flooding Through May. Food prices to skyrocket as thousands of farms are destroyed. And this brings you to my first precept in Luke chapter 21, verse 11. And great earthquakes shall be in diverse places, which are happening damn near daily. You can go to any website or YouTube channel that follows earthquakes to see that, and they're happening globally in diverse places. And famines caused by historic flooding of farmers' lands, and pestilences, and fearful sights, and great signs shall there be from heaven, such as 3 supermoons happening back to back to back. We have never seen catastrophic flooding like this, and the NOAA is now telling us that there will be more major flooding for at least 2 more months. On Thursday, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration warned that historic, widespread flooding would continue through May. More than 90% of the upper Midwest and Great Plains is currently covered by an average of 10.7 inches of snow, and all that snow is starting to melt. That means that we are going to transition from one of the worst winters in modern history to a flood season that has already taken an apocalyptic turn for farmers all across America. And what are we just reading that article on NBC News about supermoons? The worm moon is called such because it signals the melting of the frost and earthworms returning to the surface. And it seems that this frost is going to be melting a little bit too much. At this moment, millions of acres of farmland are already underwater. Thousands of farmers are not going to be able to plant crops this year, and thousands of other farmers that have been financially ruined by the floods will never return to farming again. And there shall be famines and fearful signs in the heavens. This is already the worst agricultural disaster in modern American history, and it is going to get a whole lot worse. I posted an article about this crisis yesterday, and I am troubled by the fact that most Americans don't seem to understand the gravity of what we are facing, and that's to be expected because the majority of those dildo-head Americans out there are only concerned about partying on the weekend. But as it says, when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction shall befall them, especially for 2/3 of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans who are the true children of Israel, who refuse to hearken back into your power. You're especially going to get it when Jacob's trouble happens, which we're on the cusp of. Millions of bushels of wheat, corn, and soybeans have been destroyed by floodwaters. Hundreds of millions of dollars worth of livestock have been lost, and all of us will soon be feeling a lot more pain at the grocery store. And this would be a complete and utter national nightmare even if the flooding was all over. But the NOAA just told us that we should expect more catastrophic flooding for the next 2 months. Our Spring Outlook 2019 is out today. Historic, widespread flooding to continue through May. In fact, the NOAA is using the words unprecedented flood season to describe what is coming, and they are warning that more than 200 million people are at risk. And what is there, about 314 million American citizens? That's more than 2/3 of U.S. citizens that are going to be affected by this flooding. Forecasters warned the floods would likely continue through May and could worsen in the coming weeks. This is shaping up to be a potentially unprecedented flood season with more than 200 million people at risk, Ed Clark, director of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's National Water Center in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, said on Thursday in the agency's Spring Outlook. Of all the natural disasters that we have seen in recent years, this is the biggest, and U.S. food production is going to be dramatically affected because many farmers will not be able to grow crops at all in 2019, and U.S. farmers haven't been having a good go at things. This trade war is cutting into their profits. You're having an unprecedented amount of U.S. farmers file for bankruptcy, and there's a rising number of suicides among U.S. farmers because the outlook is bleak for them, and these floodings are only going to exacerbate all those problems. The reality is this isn't going to be over for a very long time, Jorgensen said. It took years after 2011 for people to come back. For me as a farmer, there are flooded acres here that to think that I'll be able to plant a crop in 45 days is just virtually impossible. And many farmers will never recover from this disaster at all. According to one farmer in Iowa, somewhere around half of the farmers in his entire county will not be able to come back from this. I would say 50% of the farmers in our area will not recover from this. Dustin Sheldon, a farmer in southwestern Iowa's flood-devastated Fremont County near the swollen Missouri River, said this week. I said it yesterday and I will say it again. This is the worst blow to U.S. agriculture that I have seen in my entire lifetime. The amount of food that has been lost is absolutely staggering. Due to the trade war, farmers were storing more wheat, corn, and soybeans than ever before, but now the floodwaters have destroyed much of what had been stored. As prices plummeted last year amid the ongoing trade fight, Growers, faced with selling crops at a loss, stuffed a historic volume of grain into winding plastic tubes and steel bins. Some cash-strapped families piled crops inside their barns or outside on the ground. Farmers say they are now finding storage bags torn and bins burst open, grain washed away or contaminated. Jeff Jorgensen, a farmer and regional director for the Iowa Soybean Association, said he has seen at least a dozen bins that burst after grain swelled when they became wet. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, any wheat, corn, or soybeans that are contaminated by floodwaters must be destroyed. This is all scriptural. This is my next precept in 2 Esdras chapter 15. I'm going to start at verse 12. Egypt shall mourn, and America is known as a spiritual Egypt and Sodom and Gomorrah, as pursuant to Revelation 11 and 8. And the foundation of it shall be smitten with the plague and punishment that the Most High shall bring upon it. And the plagues that hit ancient Egypt are going to hit this modern spiritual Egypt as well. Verse 13, they that till the ground shall mourn, U.S. farmers, because their crops are being destroyed by historic flooding, for their seeds shall fail through the blasting and hail, and with fearful constellation, such as 3 supermoons happening back to back to back in the first 3 months of the year, and where it says that their seeds shall fail through the blasting, as we just read. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, any wheat, corn, or soybeans that are contaminated by floodwaters must be destroyed because of that blasting. And also, where it said the seed shall be destroyed by hail, this is an article from WKBW.com, and the title reads, Bomb Cyclone, which is hit the central U.S. and has all that snow that's just waiting to melt to just add to the historic flooding that's already taking place, striking the Rockies and central U.S., bringing snow,